Namaste. Welcome to this top 3 tips video. We are going to be covering the seated forward fold, Paschimottanasana. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe. Feel free to comment and drop any questions in the chat below. I look forward to connecting with you in that way. So let's get started. All right, so tip number 1 for the seated forward fold is paying attention to your beginning position. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. If you start your seated forward fold just by folding forward, most likely you're going to have this nice kind of easy rounded curve in your spine. And you're probably going to be feeling a little bit more stretch through your back. If you really want the stretch for the back of the thighs and the calves, back of the legs, lengthen your arms up, reach your fingertips as high as you can, lift your chest, tailbone goes back, take a deep breath in, lengthen even more, and then exhale, and as you come forward, from there, we're going to move into tip number 2. Okay, so tip number 1 is starting in this position rather than just starting here, right? So you want to open up, and your stretched position might very well look like that. I'm not saying that yours has to look like mine. What I'm saying is that you are putting the effort to lengthen as much as you can first, lift your chest as much as you can first, and then move forward from there. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is the moving into the pose. What do we do when we're moving into the pose? Again, we want to think about this in a methodical way. We want to keep that lift in the chest. We bend from the hips, not the back. Okay, so again, we're not doing this where we're bending from the back. We're hinging at the hip joints instead. Okay, so as we're hinging from the hip joints, naturally, like if I was a book and I was closing here, this part of the book is going to touch the other part of the book before this one does. So a book wouldn't shut like this. And it's the same with our bodies here. We want to shut like a book. So that means that when you lengthen, your chest is up, you're going to lead with your ribs coming forward, chest, and then the head. And then there might be a bit of roundedness in the back after you release that. Ooh, I should have warmed up before I did this video. my back is not ready for this, or my legs rather. So when you are lengthening up, you're lifting your chest, you're folding, ribs going forward first, then the chest, shoulders, and finally the head. And then you can grab onto whatever part of the feet, or you can grab onto the big fingers or peace fingers and thumbs around the big toes, or hands on the legs and pulling the elbows towards the floor, or hands on the other side linked together. Okay, so that's the moving into the pose. Tip number 2 is moving into the pose, ribs first, chest, shoulders, and then the head. Tip number 3. Tip number 3 is in the pose. When you are in the seated forward fold, what should you be doing? What should you be thinking about? You should be thinking about the top of your head getting closer to your feet rather than your top of your head getting closer to your knees. Okay? So again, I see it all the time with students, and if you're doing it now, don't feel bad because maybe somebody didn't tell you yet how to do it properly. So that's why I'm here. So a lot of people trying to get the head towards the knees, but then you end up with this rounded back position, and it's less stretch for the back of the legs. So instead of thinking about your head going towards your legs, think about your head, top of the head, going towards the feet. So if you've come forward with that ribs, chest, shoulders, and head position, instead of thinking about bringing your head closer to your legs, think about bringing your belly button closer to your thighs. And when you do that, you'll notice that the top of the head also goes closer to your feet. So it's a gliding forward movement rather than a folding forward movement. I know we call it the seated forward fold, and really it is a fold, but it's not a bending movement. We're folding forward, and then we're lengthening the top of the head towards the feet. The belly button goes towards the thighs. So I hope you enjoyed those top 3 tips for the seated forward fold. To recap, the first tip was coming into the pose. You want to lengthen up as much as you can, lift the chest, and start from that lengthened position rather than a rounded position. Second tip was the movement into the pose. So having the ribs go forward first, and then the chest, the shoulders, and then finally the head releases. And then the third was in the pose. Rather than thinking about head coming to the knees, you want to think about top of the head going towards the feet. So you get that lengthening through the back rather than rounding through the back. So I hope you found that helpful. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our channel and drop any comments or questions below. And I look forward to connecting with you in that way. Namaste.